Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of Martial Universe episode number 8 based on novel. So let's start. In the arena, countless pairs of eyes stared in shock at that gigantic waves rolling across the horizon. All of them understood that the instant these waves crashed down, a bloody river would surely follow. The yuan power of an advanced manifestation stage practitioner is actually this potent. As they stared at that yuan power waves that were several hundred meters tall, even Mulei and Wuxiai, who were at initial manifestation stage, were shocked. Even if they joined forces, they would probably be unable to launch such a powerful attack, and this caused them to involuntarily sigh. Advanced manifestation stage was simply too formidable. Tingshuo's strength has improved really quickly. Mulei and Wuxiai glanced at each other as both of them saw a tinge of shock flash across their eyes. In terms of ability, Tingshuo had obviously far exceeded them. I wonder how Lin Dong plans to fight back. This time, Tingshuo obviously does not intend to hold back. Standing beside Mulei, when Mu Qianqian heard his sigh, her beautiful face turned solemn. The fight between the two of them was at the climax. Right now, if any of them made the slightest misstep, it would be fatal for them. The waves rolled across the horizons before Tingshuo's body actually descended gradually until he eventually sunk into the waves. Then, a resplendent glow erupted forth from within. Instantly, that gigantic waves began to shrink at a visibly terrifying pace. Lin Dong, today I will demonstrate to you just how powerful it is when a manifestation stage practitioner executes a manifestation martial arts. As that resplendent golden glow erupted forth, Tingshuo's icy cold voice suddenly emerged from within the waves. Great desolate ocean splitting seal. After he shouted out, a earth-shattering yuan power vibration suddenly erupted. Then, that gigantic yuan power wave was actually forcefully ripped apart by an unstoppable force, before a resplendent light column penetrated the horizons. Then, it directly transformed into 100 meters large mysterious hand seal. On top of that huge glowing seal, an exceedingly formidable shockwave manically swept forth, before it caused violent gusts to sweep across the sky. Faintly, a glowing seal was materializing above that gigantic wave. Great desolate ocean splitting seal. Below him, Lin Dong's eyes shrunk as he stared at that large glowing seal. From its surface, he could sense a familiar vibration. Based on its name, that martial arts should have been obtained from the Great Wasteland's ancient tablet. However, the vibrations from this manifestation martial arts was not as formidable as what Lin Dong had expected. This can be considered at most as an imitation manifestation martial arts. How dare you claim it to be manifestation martial arts, what a joke. Lin Dong's eyes glimmered as he immediately deciphered the clues. Though Tingshuo's martial arts is more powerful than 9-grade martial arts, it is not a manifestation martial arts, it's enough to finish you off. After Lin Dong caught his bluff, Tingshuo's face was somewhat grim. Then, he laughed venomously before he swiped his palm. Then, that giant glowing seal, hovering in mid-air, flew towards Lin Dong with a terrifying momentum. Lin Dong lifted his head as he stared at that formidable glowing seal growing rapidly in the pupils of his eyes. Then, a chuckle emerged on his face before he flipped his palm. Immediately, the spirit accumulation praying mat that he obtained from the auction appeared. Once the spirit accumulation praying mat appeared, Lin Dong's mind moved, before streams of powerful mental energy and yuan power quickly gushed into it. As these two different energy sources fused together, streams of a mixed color energy source instantly appeared. It was exactly the peculiar energy source fused from yuan power and mental energy, yuan power essence. After creating yuan power essence, Lin Dong's hands lightning quick formed a series of hand seals. As these hand seals changed, the surrounding yuan power in the domain started to vibrate violently, before they gushed into that spirit accumulation praying mat, as if they were being sucked in. Then, they fused with streams of potent mental energy to form streams of yuan power essence. Performing fusion requires a delicate balance. Now that Lin Dong's mental energy cultivation had reached high-grade symbol master, he became increasingly proficient at controlling it. Hence, most ordinary people could only see a giant light column formed from yuan power essence penetrating through the horizons. It was a truly astounding sight. Boom boom. A deep noise echoed out in the horizon, while that light column formed from yuan power essence suddenly squirmed rapidly. Finally, under the stares from the crowd, it transformed into a large mixed-color glowing finger. When that glowing finger materialized, even though there was no wind, all of Lin Dong's clothes swayed and rattled. Then, he suddenly took a step forward, before he jutted his finger forth, while his loud words ricocheted across the horizon. great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger, imprisoning the world with one finger. Boom boom. The heavens shook when Lin Dong jutted his finger forth. The vibrations undulated on that glowing finger, formed from Yuan power essence, turned increasingly terrifying. Then, under countless stares from the crowd, that glowing finger shook before it directly slammed against that large glowing seal. Boom boom boom. That earth-shattering explosion was just like the tantrums of the thunder god, and it was deafening. Due to that insane shockwave, Lin Dong's glowing finger was actually directly blown away. Then that glowing finger and glowing seal exploded. Lin Dong and Ting Sho vomited out a mouthful of blood almost simultaneously. Both of their attacks were linked to their mental states. Now that their attacks had imploded, both of them suffered injuries. Ting Sho, have you ran out of tricks? After retreating several hundred steps, Lin Dong forcefully stabilized his body. Then, the devouring ancestral symbol inside his Niwen palace trembled, before shockwaves swept forth and immediately stabilized the raging blood inside his body. Following which, he lifted his head and stared at a steely green Ting Sho before he smiled. Then, his hand seals changed before a large black hole appeared behind his body, the art of devouring. That black hole stretched out, while a deep roar echoed out inside Lin Dong's heart. Instantly, all the Yuan power in this domain directly transformed into a mist-like Yuan power python, before they tunneled into the black hole. Then, the Yuan power reserves inside his body, that had been depleted, quickly filled up again. After he had the devouring ancestral symbol, Lin Dong no longer had to worry about running out of Yuan power. Its devouring ability will greatly prolong his battle stamina. In the future, if anyone wants to use delaying techniques to fight against Lin Dong, it would perhaps be a most foolish decision. That is because right now, Lin Dong only grew more powerful as he fought. As the Yuan power in this domain swarmed into Lin Dong's body, his originally feeble aura suddenly surged. Promptly, he took a step forward, before his hand seals changed. Then, above the spirit accumulation praying mat, another terrifying Yuan power essence light column penetrated through the horizon. As he stared at that Yuan power essence light column that was even more savage than before, a tinge of shock flashed across the deepest region of Ting Sho's eyes. However, right now, Lin Dong did not give Ting Sho any chance to react. As his hand seals changed, that gigantic Yuan power essence light beam quickly transformed into a heavenly pillar-esque glowing finger. Meanwhile, the shockwaves undulated on it were even more terrifying than before. Ting Sho, surrender your dog life. Lin Dong hovered in mid-air, as his icy-cold voice sounded out. Immediately, he jutted his finger forth, before the color of the sky instantly changed. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger, crushing mountains and river with 2 finger. Half a year ago, Lin Dong needed to borrow Little Martin's power to use this second finger, but now, he completely did not need to rely on any external force. With the power in his body, he was already able to completely display it. Moreover, he also had the devouring power of the devouring ancestral symbol, and hence possessed a very solid foundation to directly use essence Yuan power to activate this martial art. Its power was akin to wings being added to a tiger, so formidable that it was indescribable of course, if it were not for the fact that Lin Dong's mental energy had reached the high-level soul symbol master stage, and he had the aid of a godly tool like the devouring ancestral symbol, let alone using essence Yuan power to activate the second finger, it was likely that even the first finger would be unbearable for him. Hand over your pathetic life. The light finger took shape, and Lin Dong was not the slightest bit slow. A blade-like chill filled his eyes as he sternly shouted, while the giant finger completely formed from essence Yuan power immediately screamed downwards, making it seem as if the sky had collapsed in that moment. Bang bang bang. The air continuously exploded in the sky as a giant finger descended from the heavens towards Ting Sho like the finger of a god. You don't have the qualifications to kill me. Although the situation was critical, Ting Sho was worthy of being called an ambitious and ruthless character. A vicious look flashed across his eyes as his hands formed seals at a lightning-quick speed, while threads of strange black chi swiftly flowed out of his body. Ghastly puppet devil skeleton. A low roar that contained a type of suffering suddenly rang out from Ting Sho's throat. Generating this strange black chi seemed to have a rather large burden on his body. These black chi gushed out at an extremely rapid speed. In the blink of an eye, it gathered and took shape in the air above Ting Sho's head, transforming into a black skeleton that was definitely titanic. Great devil skeleton technique. Staring at the titanic black skeleton that enveloped Ting Sho's body, the expressions of the seated sect leaders fluctuated a little. Evidently, they had heard of this cruel martial art of the ghastly puppet cult. To master this martial art, one needed to obtain the bone essence of many people, and then use mental energy to purify it. In the end, it would merge with the body and when activated, it would cause these bone essence power to swiftly fuse together, condensing into a fairly strange power. This power was not Yuan power nor mental energy, but another kind of comparatively unique and strange power. Evil practice. The black devil skeleton burst apart as a formidable black light suddenly swept out from within it, flying at an extremely astonishing speed as it stabbed at Lin Dong. The black light's speed was terrifyingly swift and ferocious. Even a powerful practitioner like Mulei could only vaguely see a black speck flash across his vision. However, although Mulei and the other practitioners were unable to sense the attack of the black light, Lin Dong, whose mental energy had already reached the high-level Soul Symbol Master stage, sensed it immediately. His eyes flashed as vigorous, without equal mental energy, condensed in front of him to form a huge defensive layer. That was several tens of meters thick. Bang! The black light shot over. However, when this seemingly weak attack hit the mental energy defensive wall, it exploded like a bomb. The mental energy defensive wall crumbled in an instant, and Lin Dong was also affected and spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. However, the chilling smile on his face grew increasingly wide as his finger pressed down, and the light finger that had annihilated the black skeleton lightning quick slammed into Ting Sho's body. The previous attack was clearly Ting Sho's life-risking strike, forcing Lin Dong to defend and be unable to control the giant finger to continue attacking, while Ting Sho could take the opportunity to retreat, before organizing the ghastly puppet cult practitioners to combine their forces and kill Lin Dong. However, he never expected that Lin Dong would rather risk being injured than let go of this excellent chance. As the light finger dissipated, the bloody figure at the center of the hole wildly vomited a mouthful of fresh blood. His aura had become extremely weak, and one could tell that this attack had inflicted serious damage to Ting Sho. As they stared at the bloody person in the hole, the entire mountain top fell into absolute silence, while an unconcealable shock filled every single person's eyes. Ting Sho had lost. Under the gazes of countless Great Desolate Province practitioners, the one known as the most powerful in the Great Desolate Province had now been completely defeated at the hands of a youngster. On the seats, the various sect leaders who had been invited also could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva as they looked to each other, seeing the shock and alarm in each and every one of their eyes. Especially those that had planned on casting themselves in with the ghastly puppet cult. Cold sweat flowed down their foreheads, as they continuously rejoiced that they had not said too much previously. Or else, it would likely be difficult to escape the calamity today. Their gazes secretly looked towards the young figure, which was slowly descending from the air. The latter's expression was cold and detached. They knew that the viciousness of this seemingly young person would not lose out in the slightest to some cunning old foxes. The ghastly puppet cult is finally going to fall this time. The hand that Mulei had placed on the back of his chair continuously trembled. After taking a quick look at the plaza, his eyes stopped at the young figure, an unspeakable fear in his eyes. This Lin Dong is too ferocious. I'm afraid that it will be very difficult to find anyone in the Great Desolate Province that can compare with him. Taking on the ghastly puppet cult all by himself. This was pitilessly domineering. Sect leader, quickly save sect leader. All ghastly puppet cult practitioners heed this command, form the great formation, and kill this little bastard. The silence on the mountaintop lasted for a moment before the ghastly puppet cult practitioners finally regained their senses, and the left and right elders immediately shrieked in fury. As if he had heard their shrieks, Lin Dong slowly lifted his head and looked towards the left and right elders, a grin on his lips, while a soft laughter caused chills to rise up in everyone's hearts. Don't worry, I've said this before today. I will massacre the ghastly puppet cult. Countless elite practitioners swarmed from every direction in the mysterious Black Yin Mountain. Finally, everyone simultaneously slammed their fists against the ground. Then, the entire mysterious Black Yin Mountain started to vibrate vigorously. Based on this scene, it was just like an earthquake had occurred, as countless large granites continuously stumbled off the mountain, causing a commotion to erupt in the middle of the ghastly puppet cult headquarters. Those elite ghastly puppet cult practitioners slammed their fist on the ground together. The mountain peak suddenly split apart. Then, countless large light columns penetrated through the ground and gathered above the mysterious Black Yin Mountain at a terrifying pace. In a short period of time, an exceedingly huge glowing formation picture enshrouded the entire horizon. This giant glowing formation picture gave off an exceedingly terrifying Yuan power vibration. Everyone could tell that this was the formation that was formed from the combined strength of every elite ghastly puppet cult practitioner. After all, Ghastly Puppet Cult was one of the top 3 factions in Great Desolate Province, and everyone naturally knew that they had some tricks left. Right now, it seems like this terrifying glowing formation picture was evidently the final trick of the Ghastly Puppet Cult. I never expected Lin Dong could actually force the Ghastly Puppet Cult to use the grand defensive formation. When Mulei saw this sight, his eyelids twitched. Meanwhile, or filled his voice, this grand defensive formation is extremely complex to set up. The reason why the ghastly puppet cult was able to activate it this quickly was because they were already prepared. However, after executing it this time, it would require a tremendous amount of effort and time in order to use it again. Therefore, in that period of time, ghastly puppet cult will lose the protection of the grand defensive formation, and they would be in critical danger. That is because at this juncture, if another faction choose to attack them, they would lose their most powerful defenses. When he heard Mu Lei's words, Mu Qianqian's beautiful eyes glimmered gently, before she glanced at the former, only to realize that a peculiar glint was not glimmering in his eyes. Lin Dong, you are simply too much. Do you think our ghastly puppet cult cannot handle you? Just as Mu Lei and Wu Zong secretly communicated, in the arena, when left and right senior elders saw that the formation had been successfully activated, the rage in their hearts instantly rose up. Then, they quickly sent some elite practitioners to retrieve a gravely injured Ting Sho, before they lifted their heads and shouted out angrily. In the sky, Lin Dong lowered his head and looked at that giant glowing formation picture. The Yuan power vibrations undulated on it were extremely alarming. In fact, even the Yuan power vibrations on Ting Sho's all-out attack could not be compared to this glowing formation picture. Evidently, this time around, the ghastly puppet cult had fully executed their final signature move. Lin Dong, if you are wise, quickly retreat now. Our ghastly puppet cult does not want an internecine. Down below, left and right senior elders' loud voice continuously sounded out an internecine. Do you think you can force one? However, with regards to their words, Lin Dong chose to chuckle instead. The ghastly puppet cult's grand defensive formation was indeed extremely tricky to deal with. However, it was not like he had no options at all. Since he had pledged to slaughter the ghastly puppet cult today, he would not go back on his word. Just as little Martin tunneled inside Lin Dong's body, the large glowing formation picture below suddenly released thunder-like roars. Then, glowing halos swarmed in from every direction at an alarming rate, before they finally gathered at center of that glowing picture. Lin Dong, surrender your life. When they sensed that the formidable Yuan power above the formation picture was about to erupt like a volcano, the left and right senior elders instantly roared out angrily. Next, their hand seals changed before that formation picture suddenly vibrated. Then, a rainbow-like light beam erupted from within the formation picture with a loud swoosh. That light beam flashed across the horizon, and it seemed like this entire sky was split into two by this destructive light beam. Everywhere the light beam flashed by, it left a visible mark on the sky. This monstrous attack caused everyone here to feel a peculiar fear coursing through their bones. Even an advanced manifestation practitioner would find it difficult to escape from such an attack. Based on Mu Lei and the rest's calculations, this attack was probably more powerful than anything a peak advanced manifestation practitioner could execute. A glowing beam flashed across the sky as Lin Dong's expression turned solemn as well. Under the bewildered stares from the crowd, he actually directly sat down in mid-air, before his hand seals changed. Then, an ancient symbol filled with an ancient scent swiftly emerged from above his head. As it squired, it caused a wind to rage by before it transformed into a large black hole above Lin Dong's head. The art of devouring, devour everything. A deep roar suddenly echoed out inside Lin Dong's heart. Promptly, that black hole began to squirm rapidly, before an exceedingly formidable devouring force gushed out from within. As that devouring force swept forth, the light beam that shot out from the sky suddenly vanished, as if it was swallowed by that black hole. Under the stares from the crowd that was scattered across the mountain, that destructive light beam that could even threaten a manifestation stage practitioner directly shot into that squirming black hole. When they saw that Lin Dong had forcefully intercepted the glowing formation's attack, a series of disbelieving exclaims instantly erupted in the arena. In fact, fear even surfaced in the eyes of that left and right senior elders. After all, they were totally unable to believe that Lin Dong could actually intercept such a terrifying attack. Your dog-shit formation is merely so. As countless pairs of eyes stared in awe in mid-air, Lin Dong stood up. Then, his palms swirled, while a devouring force instantly materialized beneath his fist, before he executed a punch, devouring fist. After punching out, countless black holes materialized beneath Lin Dong's fist, before they transformed into vicious force winds and solemnly slammed against that glowing formation picture. Boom boom boom. After they were hit by his fist, countless micro black holes extended out, while the devouring force erupted forth. Then, the yuan power vibrations on that giant formation began to dissipate at an alarming rate, before the entire formation instantly crumbled with a loud crack. After that large formation exploded, countless elite ghastly puppet cult practitioners turned pale, before most of them immediately vomited out a mouthful of fresh blood. Instantly, a potent bloody smell extended across the entire mountain peak. In the arena, when the other sect leaders saw this miserable sight, they instantly sucked in a breath of cold air in their hearts. All of them knew that this time around, the ghastly puppet cult was truly finished. On the plaza, a reddish hue also surfaced on the ghastly puppet cult left and right elders' faces, before they involuntarily vomits a mouthful of fresh blood and their auras instantly withered. Their eyes were filled with a thick, unconcealable terror. Never did they ever imagine that the sect-protecting great formation powered by all the practitioners in the ghastly puppet cult would actually be broken apart by Lin Dong. Even at Ting Sho's peak, it was very difficult for him to do so. Around the plaza, the various practitioners of the Great Desolate Province watched this sight with alarm in their eyes. The ones who had originally thought that Lin Dong was here to throw away his life now tightly shut their mouths. Even a faction as powerful as the ghastly puppet cult had suffered a crushing defeat at Lin Dong's hands. Who else would be able to stop this god of killing in the Great Desolate Province? Under the watch of countless gazes, the Lin Dong in the sky slowly breathed out as the purplish-black glimmer in his eyes faded. His eyes were now much dimmer than before. The great battle today had taken a terrifying toll on him. If it was not for the existence of the devouring ancestral symbol, it was likely that Lin Dong would have to temporarily retreat when the ghastly puppet cult brought out their sect-protecting great formation previously, but even so, the current him felt waves of weakness emitting from his body. Contending against an entire sect alone, moreover, it the powerful ghastly puppet cult. This deed would require an extremely terrifying power, at least, from what Lin Dong thought. If it were a normal practitioner, 3 advanced manifestation stage practitioners would be the minimum needed to push the ghastly puppet cult to this stage. While Lin Dong had completed this magnificent feat with the strength of the half-step to manifestation. Although he had little Martin's aid at the final moment, this did not weaken his domineering majesty at all. Such a feat, let's not mention the Great Desolate Province, even in the entire Great Yang Empire, it was likely that no one would be able to accomplish this. Ting Sho is still not dead. I need to get rid of him or else there will be no end to this problem. Lin Dong replied in a low voice. He understood how formidable an advanced manifestation stage practitioner was. Previously, he had utilized many means before being able to seize an opportunity to seriously injure Ting Sho. If they retreated this time, would they not have wasted this chance? This time, Ting Sho had been careless. If he had utilized the sect-protecting great formation from the start, given his power and with him controlling the formation, even if Lin Dong had the devouring ancestral symbol plus little Martin's help, they would only be able to flee. This kind of carelessness would not appear in Ting Sho a second time, and Lin Dong did not intend to give him this second chance. To get rid of the grass, one needed to remove the roots. Or else, there will be no end to this problem. Lin Dong looked towards the mysterious Black Yin mountaintop, where a large group of ghastly puppet cult practitioners were gushing out before fearfully staring at him. Looks like Lin Dong had completely engraved himself into the ghastly puppet cult members' hearts after the great battle today. Since that is so, quickly do it. Take advantage of the chaos to kill Ting Sho, and the ghastly puppet cult will follow and collapse. If they lose Ting Sho, the factions with a grudge against the ghastly puppet cult will definitely pounce on this opportunity. At that time, this ghastly puppet cult might even be completely wiped out from the Great Desolate Province. When it saw Lin Dong persist, little Martin pondered for a moment before heavily nodding its head. Its nature was similarly that of being unwilling to nurture a tiger that would bring about a calamity. If there was a chance, it would directly make a move and not give the enemy any chance of survival. Lin Dong softly chuckled as he slowly nodded his head. His figure moved, slowly descending from the skies while numerous ghastly puppet cult practitioners watched in fear. Even if you want to be the leader of the ghastly puppet cult, I will give it to you. Given our strength, if we join hands, we will definitely have a place in the Great Yang Empire. At that time, everyone in the Great Yang Empire can only look up to your position. One could do not but admit that Ting Sho was rather bold. Even at this kind of time, he would even yield his position to another. Moreover, the terms he had spoken about possessed a fatal enticement for many people. However, Lin Dong was not the slightest bit interested in becoming the leader of a sect. Furthermore, he knew that given Ting Sho's vicious character, letting Ting Sho live was undoubtedly the same as dooming Lin Dong. Ting Sho, until now you still use this kind of lowly tricks. Don't you think you're looking down on this little brother Lin Dong too much? However, just as Lin Dong was about to speak, a laugh suddenly echoed out in the plaza behind, immediately drawing the gazes everyone in the plaza. Mulei. Ting Sho's eyes abruptly darkened the moment his gaze shifted over. He stared daggers at Mulei as he venomously said, Mulei, you've finally made your move. Initially, Lin Dong had been stunned by this scene, but a mocking expression quickly surfaced on his face. He crossed his arms as he watched the suddenly furious sect leaders. All of you. Ting Sho was clearly greatly angered. In particular, when he saw the few sects he originally had agreements with actually yell loudly to overthrow the ghastly puppet cult, he felt a sweetness at his throat and almost vomited another mouthful of fresh blood. Do you really think that my ghastly puppet cult is afraid of second-rate good like you all? Kill them. Ting Sho's eyes were blood red, no longer able to endure the rage in his heart as he ferociously roared, Humph, Ting Sho, you still dare to be so furious in this situation. However, the current Ting Sho obviously no longer possessed the intimidation from before. Mulei and Wu Zong sneered as their hands waved. The elite troops, which had come along with them, swiftly charged forward, stopping the ghastly puppet cult practitioners. Immediately, the mountaintop became extremely chaotic. However, it did not have anything to do with Lin Dong this time. These fellows change rather fast, immediately falling out with the ghastly puppet cult. When they see the momentum change, little Martin watched the chaotic plaza, and could not help but grin. This way was much easier on them. With the troops from the various sects involving themselves, Lin Dong no longer needed to worry about being attacked from all sides by the ghastly puppet cult practitioners. Lin Dong laughed in an indifferent manner. He knew that the Great Devil Sect and the Martial Alliance were certainly unwilling to let the ghastly puppet cult lord over them, hence, this was an extremely good opportunity. However, for the ghastly puppet cult, this was a fatal blow. We can talk later, let us first catch Ting Sho. Plan on leaving. Yet, Lin Dong merely sneered at them and walked towards Ting Sho. When the surrounding ghastly puppet cult practitioners saw this, they immediately moved to stop him, but before they could approach Lin Dong, they were wrapped up by crystal bubble-like mental energy membranes. Only stuffy bang sounds could be heard as figure after figure was exploded into bloody mists. In the midst of the bloody mists, Lin Dong's pace was neither fast nor slow. He looked just like the Grim Reaper, an extremely chilling sight. As he walked, the ghastly puppet cult practitioners who wanted to step in were all exploded into bloody mists. This scene not only caused the ghastly puppet cult practitioners' faces to color, but also the Great Devil Sect and other faction troops to shiver in fear. At the end of the bloody road, Lin Dong finally appeared in front of Ting Sho. His expression was one of indifference as he stared at the sect leader, who caused him to miserably flee half a year before he slowly extended his hand. If you want to blame something, blame the fact that you captured Little Flame. Lin Dong's voice was flat and emotionless, as a black hole abruptly spread out from the center of his palm. As he stared at the black hole, Ting Sho's expression instantly turned deathly white. His eyes were filled with fear and despair. At this time, he finally understood how terrifying an enemy he had drawn to the ghastly puppet cult. Yet, at this time, regret had already lost all effect. From this moment, the ghastly puppet cult's name would be wiped clean from the great desolate province. All of this because they had offended a young man. The young man known as Lin Dong. The black hole at the center of Lin Dong's palm rapidly spread outwards, as an incomparably powerful devouring power swiftly gushed out. Under the suctions of the devouring power, Ting Sho immediately felt waves of intense pain from his mind, as if all of his mental energy was being forcibly torn from his body. Lin Dong, let me off. I am willing to be your underling. I will give you anything you want. Ting Sho had finally given up all hope, his hoarse voice urgently shrieking as he smelt the thick scent of death. From Ting Sho's point of view, as he faced certain death, there was nothing he would not do in order to keep his life. After all, he was a cold-hearted and immoral man. In fact, previously, in order to halt Lin Dong, he even ruthlessly attacked Ting Lei and caused him to nearly die. Therefore, at this juncture, in order to keep his life, he would agree to any seemingly impossible request. Little brother Lin Dong, Ting Sho is a vicious man. If you allow him to live, there will certainly be trouble in the future. Nearby, Mu Lei, Wu Zong and the rest were incomparably nervous as they watched. If Ting Sho was really allowed to live, no one in this place will be at ease. This kind of vicious character needed to be eliminated as soon as possible, hence they hurriedly shouted out. The instant Ting Sho fell on the ground, the entire chaotic mysterious Black Yin mountain peak instantly turned silent. Elite practitioners from Ghastly Puppet Cult, and other factions, all stared in shock at that crumbling figure. For a moment, all of them were still in shock. After all, moments ago, this domineering cult leader, who could awe the crowds, had now turned into an icy cold corpse. This dramatic change caused one to feel as if one was in a dream. Lin Dong stared calmly at that icy cold corpse that was crumbling down. He had only arrived at Great Desolate Province less than 2 years ago. However, in less than 2 years' time, the Ghastly Puppet Cult, which had been established here for several decades, had crumbled at his hands. In a manner of speaking, his accomplishments were truly fearsome. Ting Sho is already dead. Do the rest of Ghastly Puppet Cult still intends to resist? Do you plan to oppose against all the various Great Desolate Provinces factions? Ting Sho's death signified the end of Ghastly Puppet Cult. Nonetheless, if Lin Dong were to rely on his own strength, even if he could kill Ting Sho, it would only severely wound the Ghastly Puppet Cult, but he would not be able to destroy it. After all, it was impossible for Lin Dong to slaughter every member of Ghastly Puppet Cult. He could at most kill a few high-level members and deliver a severe blow to the Ghastly Puppet Cult. However, he could not truly exterminate them. Moreover, after resting for a while, the Ghastly Puppet Cult may once again rise to become an elite faction in Great Desolate Province. However, it's a pity. Ghastly Puppet Cult was too arrogant and overbearing, and Ting Sho was even more domineering and even tried to forcefully create an alliance to subdue the other factions. That was precisely why they would build upon this opportunity to destroy them. In fact, in the future, the Ghastly Puppet Cult will surely cease to exist as Great Devil Sect, Martial Alliance, and the other factions will definitely not forgive the remaining Ghastly Puppet Cult branches. At that time, Ghastly Puppet Cult will completely disappear from the entire Great Desolate Province. From today onwards, a top faction shall disappear from Great Desolate Province. After Ting Sho died, Ghastly Puppet Cult lose the will to resist. Several high-level members fled off while the rest of the elite practitioners, who had lost guidance from their commanders, either fled or surrendered. In less than half an hour time, the mysterious Black Yin mountain peak now had a new owner. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.